Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is wonderful to see so many smiling faces and so many hugs around the room. So it's really a pleasure to see so many people that we haven't seen in such a long time and for such a great event. My name is Denise Gooch, and on behalf of the Employee Hall of Fame Committee, we are delighted to welcome you to our 21st annual induction ceremony. At Delaware Tech, we celebrate student success. We celebrate goals achieved to make this a great community college, and we celebrate the people that love this college and have shown us through their commitment during their time at Delaware Tech. The employees that we recognize through the Owens Campus Hall of Fame are not chosen because they are highly educated or hold degrees from prestigious institutes, but they are simply chosen because they have shown us that they cared. They cared that the campus was beautiful. They cared that the visitor was greeted with a smile. They cared that the student that walked into the college not sure left with the best education that we could provide. They cared that coworkers were encouraged and treated with respect. They cared enough to always give Delaware Tech their very best. And because they cared, the Employee Hall of Fame was established. And because Tim cared, our committee is pleased to honor him today. Dr. G. Timothy Cable as our 213th year inductee into the Owens Campus Hall of Fame. It is a pleasure to see so many of you here today. Please allow me to make some introductions. We are honored to have all of you with us here today. We have members of our Board of Trustees, Dr. Bucky Owens, and Mrs. Sue Saliba. Would you please stand? Our former chairman of the Board of Trustees, the Honorable Richard Stokes, and his wife, Sally. Our own college president, Lonnie George. And our college-wide vice presidents, Mark Brainerd, June Taransky, Ileana Smith, Stephanie Smith, and Judy Seipel. Our Legacy Society members, Dr. Bucky Owens, Sue Saliba, Dr. Lonnie George, Georgianne and Pete Oakey, Bonnie Atkins, and Linford Fawcett. From our Development Council, Dr. Bucky Owens again, Merle Moore, Sue Saliba, and Pat Campbell-White. We are also pleased to recognize some of the Hall of Fame past honorees with us today. Anna LeGates Bestie, Charlotte Purnell Langrel, Sarah Lewis, Hal McTeer, and Lois and Walt Studi. I would also like to introduce our Hall of Fame committee, Dr. Ileana Smith, Linford Fawcett, Anna LeGates Bestie, Veronica Oni, John Roach, and Karen Swain. Candy is here. We missed y'all, Candy. That means I haven't gone around and given all my hugs yet, because I missed you. Again, we thank you all for coming to this great event. And we are now going to have lunch, a delicious lunch, and we're going to follow direction of our Lighthouse caterers. Thank you.
What a room full of wonderful dear friends. I don't think I need to introduce myself because I know and I've gotten hugs from the majority of you, but I am Ileana Smith, and it is such a wonderful, wonderful occasion to see so many friendly faces, and it's really like a big family in this room. I have to say that we are so excited today to be honoring Tim Cable. And I think it's a tie. I don't know who's more excited, Tim or us. It's a good tie. This is such a special event. This Hall of Fame celebration is a time when we honor wonderful examples of the very best in Delaware Tech employees. And what an example we have in Tim. His 38-year career spanned decades of transformation for Delaware Tech, and his contributions made a profound difference. This special man left his mark on this college and on our students, and today we get to tell him thank you. I am honored to introduce Tim's wife, Deanna. She probably doesn't want me to do this, but we will. Deanna, would you stand so we can applaud you? I think Deanna can attest to Tim's dedication for Delaware Tech. I think she would probably call it obsession, wouldn't you, for Delaware Tech. But Deanna, we know that you deserve credit for Tim's accomplishments. So on behalf of Delaware Tech, we thank you and we congratulate you today. Our warmest welcome to all of Tim's friends. And this is a room full. I know you guys are all here because you think the world of Tim. And your presence makes this celebration special for him. And we really thank you for honoring him the way that you have. I know Denise introduced many of the Delaware Tech employees and those who serve the college in various capacities, including our trustees. I wish I could introduce another group individually, but we have so many present that I have to do it as a group. So let me ask all Delaware Tech retirees, except him, to please stand. Delaware Tech retirees. Tim, this is a tribute to you. You know, we have 33 Owens Campus retirees here today. And we also have 6 Delaware Tech retirees who didn't work at this campus. Allow me to introduce them. Larry Miller, former Vice President and Campus Director, Stanton Wilmington. Bill Pfeiffer, former Vice President and Campus Director, Terry. Tony DeGiannakis, former Assistant VP for Educational Support. Judy Caldwell, former Vice President for Academic Affairs. Harry West, former Dean of Instruction. Stanton or Wilmington? Both, Stanton Wilmington. And Barbara Ridgely, very recently retired, Associate Vice President for Institutional Advancement. And I know we have younger employees in the audience who don't know everyone here. They're here to give respect to those who came before. And I think they get something very special by what they see here today. And that is a great sense of appreciation for how strong the Delaware Tech family is. I also want to recognize that we have in attendance employees and retirees from our partner universities, Wilmington University and the University of Delaware. Thank you for being here for Tim. Our Hall of Fame committee does an excellent job preparing this event. We thank them, but I always need to brag about the committee chair. Denise Gooch is great at everything she does. Please help me thank her for the leadership and the care that she provides for this Hall of Fame tradition. This event lets us pay homage to our rich Delaware Tech history. We recognize that our present and our future are built on the foundation created by the college employees who came before us. Tim is a very deserving honoree. You will hear today about his tireless work in promoting this college. He believed this college was second to none. And if you were not a believer, he would talk until you were convinced. It's that contagious enthusiasm and his boundless energy that build community relations. And he made friends, many, many friends for Delaware Tech. He got his start as a teacher and as a counselor, and that student-centered perspective and appreciation for the classroom always remained foremost. I learned a lot from him about fundraising, and I remember the first time we sold out the gala, he told me that you always overbook those events, just like the airlines do. The truth was that he couldn't bear to give the money back. There are many, many stories that we could tell about Tim, but what's most important today is to say thank you. Thank you for the leadership, thank you for the hard work, and thank you for the example. When Tim announced his retirement, he made an analogy to a spaceship. He said he was the booster rocket on the spaceship that was falling off and going away, and that the college was the spaceship that would keep soaring. I think he was right about the college soaring, but he was wrong about him falling away. Tim, you are and always will be a very present part of this college. We honor you today, and we assure you that your legacy will endure. We will induct him and hear from him a little later in the program. And first we have 3 speakers: our college president and 2 members of the faculty while Tim was campus director. T.J. Mumford, chair of the Human Services and Social Science Department, who will be retiring this June, and Anna Legates-Beste, former chair of the Office Administration Department, who is also a Hall of Fame inductee. I am now pleased to introduce our college president, who's an exceptional leader, and Tim's boss, Lonnie George.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Tim, Indiana, welcome home. Honest to gosh, it is so good to see you guys. Don't you agree they haven't changed? I mean, we say that, but they really haven't changed. To all our retirees, Ileana's so right. I mean, it's so good to see all of you. I think about the talent that's in this room. I reflected in the folks that are still part of our team, but the folks who are retired. And I just see the reason why Delaware Tech has never had its star higher in the heavens. It's because of folks in this room and your colleagues and on the other locations, and certainly because of Tim's leadership. We have our, Bucky and Sue are here, our trustees, and our former board chairman, Richard. Always good to see him. I don't think there's an organization anywhere that does these kind of ceremonies better than Delaware Tech. And, over the years, we do this, and we stop our schedule and we take the time to thank people for what they have done for this college and for our students and for this team. And the secret, in my mind, has always been the warmth that is always in the room. And I don't mean that like in a temperature sense. I mean that, we are genuinely glad to see each other. We are genuinely glad to be with Tim and Deanna. There is just this warmth that exudes in every time we do a ceremony where we recognize or we thank someone. These are very special times. Tim, I don't know if you're going to remember this, and I'm not going to quiz you, but February of 1995, the Board of Trustees, headed by Judge Stokes, had just confirmed me as president. And one of my first calls was to you. I called Larry, and there were some others. I said, Tim, we need to talk. And I said to you at the time, because of, the retirements that were occurring around the college and here on the campus, I said, Tim, I want you to be my next campus director down here. And I'll never forget what you said instinctively right away. I don't know if you'll remember it, but I'm not going to ask you. You said to me at the time, Lonnie, I will never let you down. And Tim, that wasn't even an issue. I knew you would not let me down. You wouldn't let this team down, the college, our students. I knew that you had all the qualities and characteristics to be a great leader, which was certainly the case, without a doubt. We knew, I think we all knew at the time, I don't think it, I know it, all of us, that we were the guardians of something very special. And that something special is this great college, that there were men and women who came before us, who did great things to position this college. They laid the first and second and third course of bricks, and now it was our responsibility to assume the leadership of this team, what it does for our students, what it does for our community. And I needed you to be part of that team, and thankfully you said yes. It wasn't long. I mean, folks at Owens knew Tim. People around knew Tim. Some people knew of Tim but didn't really know Tim. But it wasn't long before I started hearing from people, what a great guy to work with, work for. People loved being in a room with you to help solve problems. And then I started getting questions, how did you know Tim was going to be such a great leader? And, there are, as I said, characteristics and qualities of great leaders. Tim had those. But there are two that still to this day stick out in my mind. And Ileana nailed the first one. I always thought I was the head cheerleader at this college, but, I took second place to you. No doubt about it. Right, folks? I mean, Tim just ate, slept, drank. It was Delaware Tech, and You know, everything that Eliana said was right on the money. You know, the word I would use is passionate. You had a real passion for the college, and folks, you know, there is something to be said for passion. It is infectious. It's infectious on a team. You know, when they see their leader absolutely believing in what he's doing, you know, that means all the world to the team. The second thing, though, that always stood out for me about Tim, and this is 1995, I couldn't have told you what it was in 1995. It took Hope Murray to help me understand it, but Tim was always a high EQ person, high emotional intelligence person. Tim was bright, okay? High IQ, but he also had that something special, that, you know, that EQ, that sense of yourself and others, and really being in touch with other people and your feelings and what you say and don't say and what you do and don't do. You always had that, Tim, and I needed that as part of our team because we were going to keep building this great institution. You know, I don't know that I ever saw Tim get angry, and as I think back on that, I think the closest that I ever saw you, you know, and it took some time for me to figure this out. If somebody would do something or say something and Tim wasn't particularly happy with it, there was this tell, I think. Okay, and Larry used to imitate you all the time on this. I'd have Larry come up and do it because he'll do it better than me. But folks, do you remember, okay, Tim folding his arms? The head would cock and start shaking back and forth, and he would say, "Give me a break." That was Tim being upset. Oh, gosh. Tim, lots of good memories, okay? Wonderful memories. A lot of great things that you have your name next to. You know, as this college continues to grow, you will go down as one of those great leaders that other folks are going to build this great campus and college on your shoulders. You've left a great legacy here in the team that's at Owens. You'd be proud of them. I know you are, but they're doing some amazing things, and that is a wonderful legacy to leave to this college. Tim, I don't know how to say it. I'll always be grateful to you for having said yes. I'm willing to step up and take over and help be part of this team. You have made all the difference in the world, and it's reflected here in the campus and throughout the college. And I know I speak for all of your former colleagues, board members, everybody in this college community. We're so proud of you. We're happy for you, and we offer you obviously our warmest congratulations on this much-deserved induction into the Hall of Fame. And finally, again, we wish you and Deanna continued good health and happiness in your retirement. Well done, Tim. Godspeed.
It's quite an honor to speak on the occasion of your induction, Tim, to the Owens Campus Hall of Fame. You deservedly joined the ranks of some famous and wonderful people who've come before us. If not for those people, this campus would not be what it is today. Tim, you've been a lifelong supporter of Delaware Technical Community College. 38 years at Delaware Tech. You've left an indelible mark. Your legacy of excellence continues to have a positive influence on the students, the faculty, the staff, and the community. You began your career as a secondary math instructor and counselor. You taught mathematics in the evening here at Delaware Tech, so it gives you an understanding of what it's like to be in the classroom. You became a full-time employee at the Southern Campus back in 1968. I was just in high school. You begin the steady climb through the ranks, having knowledge and responsibility at every step. You were a counselor in student services. You became a coordinator of the Office of the President, where you worked with the deans of instruction and the deans of student services. Sounds like the beginning of the one college concept back then. In that position, you also implemented faculty and staff development programs. As a director of development from 1978 to 87, you prepared and submitted proposals to state and federal funding agencies to create new programs and opportunities for our students. You set up articulation agreements. Does that sound familiar? Articulation agreements with labor unions, high schools, and other colleges. Unbelievable. From 87 to 95, you were the Dean of Development on this campus. As Dean of Development, you lobbied the state and federal legislators for additional money. In the year 1992, you brought in $2.1 million to this campus. Unbelievable. You helped set up the radiological program. You equipped a computer lab. You purchased a new tractor trailer for the truck driving program. You went out and obtained additional monies from the Longwood Foundation, the Environmental Protection Agency, Wilmington Trust, Crystal Foundation, DuPont Company. You had your hand out, and you got the money from the local businesses. With that, we purchased scientific equipment, updated the library, bought a magnifying computer for the visually impaired students. And as the counselor for students with disabilities, I can tell you students use that, and it's a wonderful asset to the college. You became the director in 1995 and served in that capacity until 2004. As campus director, you had wonderful major improvements on this campus. The building as well as the grounds expanded, and they were improved. Private funds were raised to create the fountain entrance that exists there today. You led the effort to design and build the Student Services Building. And you were the campus director when the Child Development Center opened. You had to be tired after doing all that work. The Jason Building went from, and I can remember this, tile halls with the high school lockers lining the halls, to the open carpeted hallways we know now. You brought us forward. In addition to the physical changes, you impacted on how we do business. Innovative ideas that we have today. The campus updates were part of your idea of keeping us informed. You pushed department heads to update and expand advisory committees. And the duck carving waterfowl spring event has now grown into the Starry Night fundraiser. And I understand that we're sold out. You presided over Middle States, and since we just went through Middle States, we can attest that is quite an endeavor. Your interest in international partnerships began with 18 Indonesian students, and I think Mother Sue is over here with those 18 students, and you delivering them around, driving them, trying to get them driver's license, led to the expansion of the ESL program and partnerships with other nations. All that being said, I think the deepest impact can be seen in the care and thoughtfulness and affection that you've shown for the staff, faculty, and students, the EQ that Dr. George mentioned. Whether it be pausing in the hall to talk with a student, calling a retiree to see how they're doing, or stopping by an office to get a read on how events on the campus might be impacting a program or classroom, and stopping and picking up a stray piece of trash and depositing it in the trash can, and nobody ever knew that, but people observed that. You touched every aspect of the campus life. Tim has the skill to put people at ease, whether it be the first-time hire or the seasoned veterans who've seen it all. It restores your faith in the system and in fairness in the world when you see a nice person succeed and be honored for their accomplishments. Will Rogers said, if you want to be successful, it's just this simple. Know what you're doing, love what you're doing, and believe in what you're doing. My friends, this event today is a testimonial to the fact that Dr. Tim Cable has had upon us all. He knows, he loves, and he believes in the college. And might I add, Tim, we know, we believe, and we love you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay in the back? It's wonderful to be here. It was an honor to be asked to speak today. I represent speaking of the 1960s, I was finishing high school in 1968, and I was so fortunate to be employed full-time by the Owens campus, by Delaware Tech in the mid-'70s. And I'd just love to see a show of hands when we were talking about Tim becoming acting campus director in 1995, and then in 96, he became permanent campus director. How many folks in this room were here, part of the college system in 95 and 96? Just a show of hands. Amazing. That is amazing. Well, I'm here to speak on behalf of 22 department chairs who signed a letter on Tim's behalf in 1996, a year when he was phasing from acting to permanent. And I recognize some people here today who were part of that group. I think there's only one person who remains in the college system from those years. And by the way, the Bob Trout era, when Bob Trout was head of student services, if you ever have time, I can share some of the best stories ever from the Bob Trout group. And I see a lot of those people here today because that was my time, and I think we were included in a lot of things Bob Trout did because the people who had fun knew where to go. But anyway, Myrna, I want to recognize the people who were part of this group I represent, who are here. Myrna Abbott, if you'll raise your hand or stand up. Judy Caldwell, Joanne Howe. I'm not sure I saw Joanne Howe, but I think she's Joanne. Hi, Joanne. Merle Moore, John Painter, Lois Studi, Diane Tingle. Did I say Judy Caldwell? Judy. Did I miss anyone from? But anyway, it was this all took place in the spring semester, and the year was 1996. We were here on campus. And Walt Studi, where's Walt? Raise your hand, Walt. Walt Studi was the presiding officer of this meeting because Walt Studi was the dean of instruction. And the agenda item was to discuss Tim Cable's role as the acting campus director. The action taken was to accept my offer to write a letter of support from 22 department chairs for Tim to move into the permanent position of campus director. Now, the plan was I would address the letter to Richard Stokes, chairman of the Board of Trustees. Dr. Orlando George would be copied, as well as all members of the board. Now, knowing Delaware politics, we had a long debate on which government officials should also receive a letter, and we agreed on a list of Governor Tom Carper and his staff, and all the state legislatures who represented Sussex County. So that was our government list. We would have signature lines, and each person who agreed with the spirit of the letter would sign the letter. I welcomed helpful edits, and there were a few. There was unanimous support for this effort, and all 22 department chairs signed the letter. The lead-in paragraph to the letter was, "We are most impressed with Dr. Cable's ability to include administration, faculty, support staff, and students in expanding communication channels on our campus. Due to these efforts, morale has been elevated to an unprecedented level." We described him as follows: energetic, respected, determined, conscientious, effective, excellent leadership skills, dedicated to the college's mission and goals, promotes the college's philosophy, projects a dynamic image to the public, participates in special events during the evenings and weekends, enhances cultural activities which impact the quality of life in Sussex County. Rather than mail the letter, I hand-delivered it to Richard Stokes at his Georgetown office. Remember Richard? You remember? Yeah. Thank you, honorable judge. Now a superior court judge, Richard, in 1995, was the managing partner of the law firm of Tunnell and Razor. Richard graciously accepted the letter and appreciated hearing from those closest to the action. Richard's effectiveness is one example of many networks on and off campus nurtured by Tim Cavell and the Owen staff, all built on communications and trust, such as internships, graduates, mock trials, development councils, advisory committees, and chair of the American Bar Association review team, an endless list. Throughout his career, Tim also contributed to and promoted collaborative processes that focused on program approvals, certifications, accreditations. Since he was a firm believer in professional standards, Tim was the first to applaud students and staff for a job well done. The cheerleader that Dr. George was talking about. I do believe the trust between Tim and Deans Walt Studi and Judy Caldwell demonstrated how participatory management went a long way in resolving issues. It really did. Tim, 1996 was an exciting year. The bases were loaded. A strategic plan was executed by your fans with a vested interest in winning. The Owens campus scored a home run when many like-minded folks shared their faith in you. We believed in you, knowing your commitment, dedication, and vision were for the good of the team. It was all about the team. Your exemplary leadership and accomplishments scored big. One home run at a time, you set records. Today is a celebration of those well-deserved victories. Thank you, Tim, for stepping up to the plate. I'll close with a quote, author unknown. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the quality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. Tim, you are a proven leader. Congratulations.
I think we've had some wonderful speakers and a wonderful recollection of all of Tim's accomplishments and exceptional career. So, for the induction, I ask that Tim and Dr. George please come forward and stand beside the plaque. Delaware Technical Community College proudly inducts Dr. G. Timothy Cavell into the Owens Campus Employee Hall of Fame. You may unveil the plaque.
Wow. And here I've just been relaxing on the beach, and I have a calm life, and to have all this brought back, it's wonderful, though. And I would like to thank all of those who are here today. You know, I won't go by individual names, but gee, we have the retirees and the current employees, some business people, and people who served on the Development Council and other groups that we had to help the college in doing many things, raising money, raising community support, helping us with legislation and other issues. And when I received the phone call that I was going to get this award, you know, I was honored, but also felt very humbled, believe it or not. I really was. I told Deanna, I told Deanna, I said, gee whiz, I said, really, literally, that campus is just full of great people. And then I looked at the people who were on the list of people who were on the wall, and I thought, holy smokes, this is a great situation. So the next week I went over to play golf, and we were finished. We were always going to have a sandwich and refreshments. And 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 I told the fellows, I said, well, the week of April 14th and the following week, I won't be able to play, so take my name off the list for those weeks because I'm going to Delaware and on to Pennsylvania to see my brother-in-law and his family. And someone said, well, why are you going to Delaware? And I said, well, I'm going back to the college where I worked, the Delaware Technical and Community College, to be put in the Hall of Fame. Of course, you know, from the fellows, I took a little teasing. But also, they felt I should feel honored. And the one fellow said, well, Tim, I've heard you mention that college, and it was a very good college. And I said, no. I said, it's a great college. It's an outstanding college. They understand now. But, you know, I told Deanna on the way up, you know, we drove 728 miles, so I had a long time to think about what to say today. And I go back to what the remark when I told that fellow it was not a good college, it was an outstanding college. From top to bottom, from Wilmington, Stanton, to Terry, to Georgetown, to the Owens campus. And I thought on the way up, what does make Delaware Tech so special? You know, it's a number of items, but I've narrowed it down to three things that makes Delaware Tech special. The first one is the college always had a good vision. From day one, when Paul Weatherly and other people got this college established, they sort of knew the type of institution they wanted. They worked with the business community, with the governor at that time, and other community leaders and state leaders, and they decided that something was needed between the University of Delaware doing graduate work and the high school level. What opportunities were there in every county for young people and older people who wanted to go back to college, or go to college to begin with for the young ones? And so it was a great foundation this college had. And I think vision is the first of three things I'm mentioning today. I've just gone through a little bit about the vision. But there's one sidebar on that vision. I'll never forget this, that when I first started in 1968, a meeting was called in the Delaware room of the Jason Building. I don't think that room remains any longer, but they invited us in there, and at that time, there were only 350 students. So we only had like 20-some employees. We went in the room, and the chairman of the board was there, a fellow by the name of Hall, H-A-L-L, Downs. He was chairman of the board. And William Carter, who was a member of the board. And as we walked, as the 20-some employees walked in the room, they handed each of us a textbook. Looked at the textbook, and it said, Writing Measurable Objectives by Robert F. Meagher. And I'll tell you what, that was the most intense workshop I think I've ever been to. In those days, there were no marker boards or smart boards. There was the old blackboards. Now, Ileana and Lonnie can remember, when you taught math, you always had chalk all over your clothing because of all the work you did with chalk dust. But they put us through, and we wrote measurable objectives. And when I think now, when you look at things like when you went through the Middle States thing, hey, you had to have vision. You can't have vision if you don't have a plan to implement the vision. So planning was so important. And I really believe those founding fathers knew this. And to me, so you have to have vision. That's number one. And the second of the third items I think you have to have is you have to have a bunch of people who are all united in, well, I'm trying to think of how to express this. How you raise resources. You can have all the vision you want, but if you don't have money to implement it, or if you don't have people to implement it, you can have all the vision you want, and it's not going to go anywhere. So at that time, the college involved all kinds of people. You had to have
your state legislators help you. You had to do federal grants. You had to do all different types of things to get the resources. The resources, there's two. There's the fiscal resources and there's the human resources. But under those fiscal resources, people like Charlotte Purnell Langro, she's a grant writer of all time. They mentioned grants I wrote. Listen, Charlotte could write circles around those of us who followed her. But she was good. She not only could do the writing, she knew where to go in Washington and lobby and do things to get things approved. In addition to Charlotte, in the president's office, Paul Weatherly hired a woman named Dr. Ruth Laws. Now let me tell you, Dr. Laws, she knew how to write grants, just like Charlotte did, and how to attain them. And the fellow who also was employed near that time was Dr. Bill Pfeiffer. Well, Paul Weatherly told Bill and I that we would work in his office and we would report to Dr. Laws. Now, I'll tell you what, Bill and I grew up in a hurry. We worked harder, I think Bill would agree. Those years working for Dr. Laws made Lonnie easy as a boss. We checked in the morning and we checked out and stayed late, but we learned a lot. She was a wonderful woman and really knew a lot, just like Charlotte did. So in the resource field, they were the ones that I thought taught the rest of us. Charlotte Purnell Langro and Ruth Laws. They were just wonderful. In raising money and those fiscal resources, obviously the state always does what they can to fund Delaware Tech, but if you're going to be great, you need more than just money to turn on the lights and pay the basic bills. You need something extra. So we knew we had to do extra things like the federal grants that I mentioned, and also we had to get started in private fundraising. And that's when I went to Everett Moore, sitting right back here, and I appreciate it. I went to Everett and I said, you know, Everett, we really need to start a development council in this institution. I said, this campus and all the campuses are going to need help in raising private money. Will you help me put together a development council? And Everett said, well, Tim, he says, I will because I believe in the college. You know, Everett attended and graduated from this campus. He went to University of Delaware, and he got his law degree at William & Mary, all fine institutions. But I think he will tell you this is the one that he supports mostly. And I asked him one day about that. I said, Everett, why do you support this campus more than you do those other institutions? Because they're fine institutions, very good institutions. He said, because I was young, I did not know what I wanted to do. I was sort of floundering around, and I came out there and I had great faculty. He took courses in the University Parallel Program. He took some Delaware Tech courses, but he ended up going to the University of Delaware. But he said Delaware Tech changed his life. And I want you to know, Everett, we really appreciate it. And he helped me start that development council. He said I only can do it for 2 years because he was involved in other activities that he does aside to being an attorney, and he couldn't devote all his time. But he helped me get the groundwork in and get some of the great people on the committee. So I appreciate that very much, Everett. The third item, we talked about vision, we talked about resources, and the third item is probably the most important of all. And boy, is this room's full of it today, and that you have to have heart, H-E-A-R-T. And people have done it. I've never seen anyone in any of our departments here that don't go further than what, say, the job description requires. You know, you can teach a class, and you can be an effective classroom teacher. But if you really want to help students, all your students, you're probably going to need to serve more extra office hours. You're going to have to take some emails or phone calls or have them stopping you in a hall and asking questions. You have to sit down and spend extra time with many of your students. And boy, the faculty here did it abundantly. Also, the faculty here, the chairs also serve as advisors. This is one college where advisors always have time to help people make their plans. They're true advisors. If you don't believe me on that, I think you do, but if you don't believe that, ask some people who have gone to other larger places out of state to large institutions, some of them don't even ever meet their advisor. Here, it's hands-on advisement, and I think that has a lot to do with success rate. And that includes our partner institutions, like Jackie over at the university program. I'm sure, I know Jackie well enough, she probably takes a ton of time with all the students pursuing degrees over there. And same with Wilmington University. Dana Painter, I'm sure she spends tons of time helping the students. Our people always seem to have that extra something. I'll bet when the Middle States team came a few weeks ago, I'll bet they were impressed with, first of all, people like Stephanie Smith. Good Lord, who's going to give you more extra time than that? To be special, you just have to do that. That makes the difference from being a good college and an outstanding college. It really does. I can think of people in our administrative services, which includes the maintenance area. I can remember Mel Vrosco and Lynn Fawcett, and I think maybe George Booth was there, but they came in to me one day and we were putting pipes to link all these buildings underground. And the bids came in high. And I said, well, we're going to have to rebid this or do this a little bit this year and a little bit next year maybe, or the year after even. Those fellows looked at all those engineering plans and they said, well, we have some ways that we can do it just as effectively and save you a lot of money. And the one, they mentioned several items. One I remember is between this building and the others on the east side of the campus, there's a pond. And there's a little bridge that goes over that pond. And they said, well, instead of having the people drill down 15, 20 feet underground to put the pipes through, we can attach the pipes underneath the bridge that goes over. That saved tens of thousands of dollars. Those fellows came up with enough things, they're still working today effectively, and saved this college a lot of money. I really think of all the state institutions, Delaware Technical and Community College, up and down this great state, Wilmington, Stanton, Terry, and here, get more bang for the dollar than any other state institution I've ever been associated with. Always stretched the dollar, stretched the pennies. And yet at the same time, I always used to tell them, you don't sacrifice quality when you do that. It's just like in academic programs, you don't lower the bar. You help students, just like in developmental studies. You help the student get over the bar. You help raise the student by tutoring them or having special labs or taking non-credit courses to where they can get over that bar. You never lower that bar. Just one example, many people here have done, but one example is Judy Caldwell. I'll never forget one day I was walking around campus and late in the afternoon, and I could see Judy in there with these 3 young men. And I could tell she was speaking to them nicely but firmly. And she explained there were 3 baseball players from Pennsylvania that were here, nice young men. But Coach Brock had turned in a report to Judy that they weren't going to all their classes and some of those things, and they were going to have trouble academically if they didn't pick up the pace. Well, I'll tell you what, I waited until that conversation was over. When those young men left, they were actually happy. I think they knew that Judy was a sports person, but they also knew she wasn't going to lower the bar. But she had taken them down to where she could get the extra help and make it. And you know, months later, I saw those students and I checked how they were doing fine. But that's the type of person that has that extra heart that I'm talking about. So there was really those 3 categories. Remember these now. One was vision. What was number 2? Resources. And number 3 is heart. And I think Ileana mentioned when she was up here that when the booster blew off, you all kept that ship going. It might even have pushed the throttle in a little bit, Ileana. I see so many great things happening to this college up and down the state. You might say, well, how do you know if you're 728 miles away? Well, I don't do a whole lot on checking on the college, but I do check once in a while on the internet. But also, Ileana's kept me in. I think it's other retirees receive alumni and friends. Dr. George's staff, they did a nice 40-year report. I read that and I shared it with some other people where I live now who are trying to build a technical college. And it's obvious when you read those reports, if you really sit down, you can see how much is taking place here now, more than ever. I think you have the pedal to the metal, and the current employees should be complimented on that, and certainly Ileana and all the other Delaware Tech administrators up and down this great state at Delaware Tech. And in closing, I'd just like to say, keep up the good work, keep the pedal down, keep doing more, just a little bit more. You can always do just a little bit more, and God bless Delaware Tech.
I told you he could convert anybody, couldn't he? Thank you, Tim, for those wonderful remarks, and you're true to yourself in encouraging us. You know, it's your day, but you help make it our day as well. So this does conclude this beautiful event, and we do have a photographer who could take pictures. I think we do, or did they leave? Okay, so if we want any friends and pictures of Tim, please come forward. And thank you so much for making this Tim's Day.